Did you know that St. Luke's University Health Network, based in the Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, has been recognized by the U.S. government as the highest performing health system in the United States for quality? You heard right. St. Luke's #1 recognition affirms our status as the top leader among the most respected healthcare providers in the nation, including Houston Methodist and the Mayo Clinic. To state it simply, if you want to receive the best care when you go to a hospital, come to St. Luke's.
In the squadron, they called him Bullets, but we call him Greg Kelly. Greg Kelly is on the air on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Would you like me to condemn?
Proud supremacists and right
Proud Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem. This is a left-wing.
FBI director
This is a left-wing problem.
White supremacist. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you got to be
not
kidding.
militia. That's what his FBI, FBI director said.
Well,
Wow, great stuff. And I really appreciate it. And we just had Enrique Tarrio, the Proud Boys, on. Proud Boys are not white supremacists. Proud Boys are not racists. There are gay Proud Boys. There are black Proud Boys. There are white Proud Boys. There are Jewish Proud Boys. There are Christian Proud Boys. They're from all over the place. And but they were lied about on that stage. And President Trump, something kicked in. He didn't want to condemn them. He knew something was off. Stand back and stand by, right? He kind of almost missed just for a moment because he was processing it. He was processing it, and he didn't say stand back and stand by. Like, it was perfect. And it changed the calculus, actually, in so many ways. You know, he would not lump in innocent people, innocent, good people. Oh, they're white supremacists because they disagree with us. White supremacy. What a phantom. What a joke. Antifa and the left and left-wing extremism and violence, we see it every day, but they try to say it wasn't a thing. It really wasn't happening. Here's some more left-wing violence. There's that guy, there's the handsome one downtown. We were just talking about him. Luigi Mangione. You can get away with anything if you're handsome. They threw out half the evidence against him because he's handsome? Are you crazy? Yeah, we got that. It's really something. He's a bad guy, and they actually kind of threw out all the evidence because he's handsome. Well, don't worry. They got enough evidence that'll. Well, here, listen to this if you don't mind. This is a cut 5, please. Cut 5.
One last time so that we're all on the same page here. What is in and what is out?
Yeah, we have more clarification now on what is in and what is out. What is out, what the jury will not learn about, the Bullet magazine. That's the magazine that full of bullets that Officer Christy Wasser found wrapped in wet underwear, because that was found in the backpack at McDonald's. The backpack was 9 feet away at another table, placed there by a police officer. Therefore, Judge Carroll found that was not in the control of Mangione, and that was an illegal search because there was no search warrant at that time for that backpack. The cell phone that he had, his passport, his wallet, and a computer chip that Christy Wasser, police officer Wasser, found at the McDonald's. She then takes the backpack an 11-minute or so ride to the police station. He's arrested. They start going through the backpack. She finds the gun. She finds a diary. That will be allowed in. The red diary will be allowed in, and the weapon will be allowed in. The judge in his ruling points out that the diary was opened, that police officers, for inventory purposes, photographed every page of the diary as they took that in. So obviously the judge has ruled that that was a legal search at the police station, which include those items. So that's why we're basically saying, I think Jonathan Turley is right. It's kind of a half victory, half win. Something's out, but most importantly, it appears now that the diary will be allowed in, and the weapon, the 9mm gun that police say was used to kill Brian Thompson, will be allowed in.
What would have happened if they had found the gun in the McDonald's? They wouldn't have been able to admit the gun. There are a million different ways to get in trouble, you know, and most of them are fake. Most of them are this regulatory crap that they have come up with without a basis in Constitution. So, well, Mangione eventually will be held. Eventually. And, once again, my friends, my January 6th friends, and I got a lot of them, quite frankly, they are going to be, they're very happy about this $1.7 billion set aside. Now, I did the math. 1,600 people convicted. If you divided $1.7 billion among just them, they'd get $1 million each. All right, but no one's going to get $1 million each. Now, if you wanted to do it equally and people were, it would be $1 million, but you got to factor in lawyers' fees. There will be lawyers' fees. That's part of it. And there's also going to be people who were not there on January 6th who did suffer at the hands of the government. Enrique was right. Some of those right to life moms, right to life dads who just stood in front of they threw him in jail for sitting in a chair in a hallway. It's wild, but it's such a beautiful thing. And I like to think that I may have had a little something to do with it. Just a little something. Yeah, me. So when I was with President Trump, and I've seen him since, but this is the first interview I did with him during this presidency, right? This is March of last year. And I brought up something I knew about the Ashley Babbitt case, that the Department of Justice was officially still opposing that matter, fighting Aaron Babbitt and his family, the estate, on settling, or actually just fighting the lawsuit, trying to have it, the government was defending the government's actions. And on that day, it actually included, they were trying to defend Michael Byrd, the trigger-happy cop who shouldn't be a cop, who should not have been a cop that day because he was guilty of all kinds of misconduct. I brought it right to President Trump, and his reaction was beautiful. Cut 13, please. Cut 13.
No one has spoken as boldly and with as much truth as you about Ashley Babbitt. It was a bad shooting. My father can tell you that. Anybody.
It's a terrible thing.
I don't know if you know this, but the Department of Justice right now is still kind of fighting that case. The family of Ashley Babbitt is suing the government, wrongful death. The DOJ right now officially is still opposing that lawsuit, trying to justify it. Shouldn't that be something that can just be settled at this point?
Well, I'll look into that. I mean, you're just telling me that for the first time. I haven't heard that. I'm a big fan of Ashley Babbitt, okay? And Ashley Babbitt was a really good person who was a big MAGA fan, Trump fan, and she was innocently standing there. They even say trying to sort of hold back the crowd. And a man did something to her that was unthinkable when he shot her. And I think it's a disgrace. I'm going to look into that. I did not know that.
And 8 weeks later, a settlement of almost $5 million was reached. Wow, it's amazing. And I also asked him about all the people who have been put out by January 6th, the weaponization. They lost a lot of money, they lost a lot of time, their lives are turned upside down. I don't have that portion of the interview here, but he did say a lot of people have been talking about that, so I've heard about that, and maybe so. Can we go to? I want to go right now to the Vice President of the United States in Kansas City, Missouri, talking with some hard hats. Let's see what this is all about. Vice President Vance, right now.
One final thought before we have to hit the road. I got to head back to Washington. As much as I'd like to say for some Kansas City barbecue, duty calls. The two places where I'd say they always say they have the best barbecue are Kansas City and Memphis, Tennessee. So who has the best barbecue, Kansas City or Memphis?
This is cornball.
All right. I'll tell that to our Tennessee friends, but I think you're a little biased. If I'm being honest, you're just a little biased. But here's the thought I want to leave you with. I think like a lot of you, I didn't grow up with a silver spoon. I didn't grow up with everything handed to me. I was raised by a mamaw and papaw. My papaw was a union steelworker for 40 years, and my mamaw was the person who took care of me when drug addiction made it hard for my own mom to take care of me herself. And one of the things that I always remember is that Mamaw would often struggle, and she would often try to, penny pinch, like a lot of people do. She would decide sometimes, this month I'm going to have to cut back on medications in order to afford groceries, or the next month she'd do the opposite. a lot of these debates, a lot of these conversations that people have to have when things get tight. And I remember as I was growing up in Middletown, Ohio, I'd read the newspaper or I'd just drive down the street and I'd see another factory that employed one of my friend's dads was closing down. Instead of adding jobs, they were shedding jobs. And I remember thinking to myself, why is it like this? Why is it that we have leaders who allow our jobs to get shipped to Mexico and China? Why is it that we have leaders who don't fight for hardworking taxpayers like my grandmother, but fight for the people who are getting rich by defrauding the system? And I realized it was a simple question of political leadership. The reason why those people were not fighting for you, the reason why they were sending jobs overseas, the reason why China and Mexico were building while the United States was shrinking, it was a simple question of political leadership. You had people in Washington who weren't fighting for you. And what I aim to do, and what the President of the United States aims to do every single day, is to be a president who fights for you, who fights for your jobs, who fights for your tax dollars, who fights for your money, and fights for your safety. Now, I happen to believe that one of the things that really made America great, and that we got away from the last few years, is that whether you were rich or poor, you had public safety. We had security in our neighborhood. We didn't grow up with a lot of money. We didn't grow up with a lot of extra benefits, but you know what we had, because the police were empowered to do their job in my little town in southwestern Ohio, is that we had safety. I felt like I could walk down the street without getting mugged or robbed. That was a good thing. And what happened under the Biden administration is that we allowed, not rich people, because rich people can afford private security, we allowed normal Americans to feel less safe and less secure in their communities. We saw murder rates, rapes, violent armed robberies at historic levels. And in just 18 months under Donald Trump's leadership, by empowering our local law enforcement and empowering the police officers who keep us safe, we have the murder rate at the lowest level in 127 years. But my friends, the thing that I realize is all these issues, they're policy issues that matter. Of course, we care about giving you more of your tax money back. Of course, we care about everybody, rich, poor, in the middle, being able to walk down their neighborhood streets in safety. We care about adding jobs rather than subtracting jobs. But all of these things are policy issues. They are symptoms of a deeper cause. And that cause is that Donald J. Trump loves this country. He loves the people who make this country great, and he wants you all to thrive. Here's the problem with today's Democratic Party in Washington, D.C. It's not just that they want higher taxes, though they do. It's not just that they voted against the working families tax cut, though they did. It's not just that they empowered the criminals, which is why we saw such high murder rates under Joe Biden's leadership. The problem is that they don't think that they fight for you. What makes them passionate, what really gets them fired up, listen to them talk. Do they get fired up about putting more money in your pocket? No. Do they get fired up about supporting our local law enforcement to keep you safe? No. What brings them to tears, what makes them angry, what makes them yell and scream and holler is illegal aliens. If you actually ask, you actually look, judge them not by what they say, but by what they do and their emotions, what they reveal to you is that they believe they exist on this earth. They believe their jobs exist in Washington, D.C., not to fight for you and for your jobs, but to fight for illegal immigrants and the fraudsters who get rich from the system. That is not a policy difference. That's a difference in who you represent and who you fight for. Now, here's what I'm never going to promise you. You know, just these four leaders who had to step away because they're going to fly back with me to Washington, D.C., they're going to disagree about policy issues. Even the four of them are not going to vote the right way or the wrong way on every single issue. They're going to have disagreements even among themselves. I'm not asking you to support congressional Republican leadership because you agree with everything Republicans do in Congress. I get frustrated with them from time to time. By the way, pass the SAVE Act. That's something they need to do.
You think? Well done, Vice President Vance. And that part about fighting, it resonates so much, right? He's the only one who actually fights. We see it every day. They all say it. They all promise it. I will fight for you. And then it's right to sleep in the swamp. All right. Well done. Safe travels there. VP Vance. Soon, someday, to be a P. We'll be right back.
Greg Kelly on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, we are back. An exciting time. I feel like it's going to be a great summer. I feel like, what was the scene in Goodfellas when they had the robbery and they made out like bandits? It wasn't the Lufthansa heist. It was much earlier than that. But they did conduct a successful robbery from JFK Airport. Back then, I guess they called it Idlewild. And it's going to be a good summer. Remember that? For you. And then the Lufthansa heist. Didn't I tell you? Don't get anything big. Don't draw any attention. Everyone's looking at us. And you go and buy a new car and a mink coat. Yes, Eddie, how are you?
Going to say that you just put the mink coat in my mind, Greg. Okay. This is your Dale Carnegie friend.
Oh,
I should have had a book in my pocket. I was at John's the Oscar party at 77 in the office. I talked to you a little bit. How to stop worrying and how to start living. That was the one you were interested in because you knew of how to win friends and influence people. But Greg, my main reason for calling is that I was down on January 6th in D.C. My neighbor Lou asked me to go. I knew nothing about a rally. He said, we'll go down and look at the buildings and go out to dinner. Well, we get there. We stayed in Bethesda at the Hilton. We come out in the morning, and in the garage there were license plates from everywhere across the United States. It was amazing. A guy gets out of his pickup truck with a vest, and I say to him, look at this. Isn't this beautiful? He goes, yeah. He says, I'm a Proud Boy, which I didn't know what it was at the time. He says, I don't have my patch on, but you seem like two nice guys. We're going to take you through the subways and make sure you get there safe and protect you from Antifa. They did. We get out, and there's two kids walking down the street, and they threw bottles at us and started screaming like, your mother wears army boots, you guys stink. Well, these two Proud Boys took off after them. These kids, like they had rockets on their buttocks. They just scattered. And then we're walking, and the street becomes thicker with people and thicker. And I'm telling you, it was like the nicest class reunion you've ever been to. People were nice, couple bad people in the crowd with riot gear on and all. And one was a lawyer, one was a human resources rep. They had a meeting in the Presbyterian Church. And,
the bad guys, you know what we call those bad guys? Feds. They were undercover feds there to unleash bad things. You're amazing. Thank you, pal.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, in my book, one of the great heroes post-January 6th has been Congressman Barry Loudermilk, Republican of Georgia. He has started a new January 6th committee and looking into all the ins and outs and what really happened there. Barry Loudermilk, Republican of Georgia again, is stepping down from Congress. He is leaving, and he's made his pick for that seat very, very clear. He wants his chief of staff, Rob Atkerson, to be the next member of Congress from that district in Georgia. And he joins us right now. Rob Atkerson, welcome. How are you? Tomorrow's the primary?
It is, Greg. Thanks for having me. Yeah, tomorrow's the primary. We're in what I'm calling the Tom Petty phase. You know, the waiting is the hardest part. So
wow.
we're leaving it all on the field here today and tomorrow, and everybody's said their piece. And tomorrow, the only poll that matters, we'll have that in by tomorrow night. So.
Is it tough to get people out there on a it's May? A lot of us don't associate primaries with May. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a tough time in Georgia. You know, some people are on vacation, but we've had a decent early vote turnout. Republicans are lagging a little bit behind Democrats in the early vote, but that's typical. A lot of Republicans, and particularly in Georgia, you know, with our history, prefer to go and vote on Election Day and make sure that they're doing it, you know, same day, so they feel a little more confident about it. So we feel good. We feel good. We've run this race, and you mentioned that Barry Loudermilk is endorsing me, and folks have said, well, you're his chief of staff. Are you just a DC guy? Are you an insider? And the folks in the district know that I am. I've been in this fight for a long time. That's the reason Barry asked me to be his chief of staff, was because I was one of the original Tea Party founders in Georgia. I've been fighting on the grassroots level for a long time, long before I served as his chief of staff. So Barry and I have both managed to not let Washington D.C. get into our bloodstream over the last 11 years. And I've been right there with him on this entire J6 investigation. As a matter of fact, that was one of my biggest regrets, for lack of a better word. I had to resign from the office to run for this seat. So, I was kind of at the tip of the spear on this J6 investigation. So I hated to leave that, because it's really still in the thick of it. Barry's going to put out, probably September, October range, probably put out his final report, is what he's been able to dig into. But they're still working it hard up there, and I haven't been able to be a part of it for the last couple of months.
Yeah, you got to leave that job to run for the office, but you really were key and covering a lot of stuff. A lot of momentum right now in the January 6th, truth coming to light. Here's Michael Fanone, the fake redneck Capitol cop. Cut 2, if you don't mind. Cut 2.
I know that Jimmy helped to evacuate me from the building and drove me to MedStar Washington Hospital Center, despite suffering significant injuries himself. At the hospital, doctors told me that I had suffered a heart attack, and I was later diagnosed with a concussion, a traumatic brain injury, and post-traumatic stress disorder.
All right, let me just jump in real quick. Now, I noticed years ago that that wasn't adding up, because he was totally fine like 7 days later. I mean, totally fine, and doing interviews and photo ops. And then we saw his body cam footage, showed that he was fine that day. But there's a lot of momentum right now about him, and I'm trying to figure out why is it that this body cam footage that I've seen and you've seen, and I saw it a fairly long time ago, is just coming to a head right now.
Well, it's a matter of the right platform releasing it to the general public. I've been hoping that's something like that would come out. There's some other things that would come out to change this narrative. But one of the biggest takeaway, Greg, that being part of this investigation, is that all of the star players post January 6th were completely lying about everything. Whether it's Fanone or Harry Dunn, the Capitol Police officer who's now running for Congress again. That was his promise, and people have gotten sweetheart jobs after this. And of course, Cassidy Hutchinson, our committee has deconstructed literally everything she said on primetime TV was a lie. And so everything was a lie. And so, but it's, because there was this kind of air afterwards, because, January 6th, when you watch that from afar around the country, it was a shock to your senses, because this is the United States of America, and this looks like this thing that's happening. But when you start to dig into it and you realize that, and I don't want to get ahead of the investigation or the report or anything, but, it just, things aren't what they seem. And so, it's been frustrating that, only folks like you and some of the alternative media have been pushing this and continuing to keep it out there. And that's a good thing, because America deserves the truth, just like they deserve the truth on the Russiagate hoax and all the other stuff that they've tried to do against President Trump over the years. It's all fake. It's all the Washington machine, or swamp, if you will, trying to keep the America First movement out, trying to maintain their power. And it's just all fake. And so I think, to see that body cam, and you said, 7 days later he was fine. 7 minutes later he was fine. So, and I've seen that video. And so, and look, don't get me wrong. Some of our folks ended up doing the wrong thing. They were, whether they were provoked or they were there to do the wrong thing, there were a handful that kind of helped the opposition, if you will, by bad behavior. But by and large, this thing was cooked up. The aftermath was definitely cooked up. We released, I believe it was released in one of the interim reports, that at one point after the January 6th, the Pelosi was in a meeting with the Secret Service, and she said, "I want the 6-foot black fence all around the Capitol." And they said, "Ma'am, we don't think there's any further threat. And she said, I don't care. I want the world to see what Donald Trump did to their city. And so, that was the thing. Beforehand, she didn't want the National Guard because she said optics. But afterwards, she wanted all the optics she could possibly get. And so all those optics, I think, of what's paralyzed a lot of the media and the politicians because, they don't want to be associated with this thing. But as the truth comes out, more and more people become comfortable acknowledging the facts that we have been uncovering, Barry Loudermilk and his team and I, for the last 3.5 years.
So a couple of weird things I found out, and then we'll move on. But Fannone's book, I just decided to open it up again. I haven't looked at it in a long time. So he is, had a heart attack, had all these things happen, which is not true. He's getting an MRI, and this is what he does. I spent the next few hours enduring tests, including an ear-splitting MRI and a seemingly endless CT scan. Back at the ER, while waiting on my test results, a nurse asked me how I was doing. I don't know, I replied. How am I doing? Everything's great, she lied. You're doing fine. No, I said, pointing to my crotch. How am I doing? She laughed. I'm sure that's going to be fine, too. I mean, this guy's an animal. This guy, it's the strangest, bizarre. Yeah. He's a freaking nut.
Yeah. I mean, you can look at the interaction that he had recently with, I guess it was Ivan Raiklin in one of the committee meetings. I mean, he was clearly unhinged. Somebody said something to him, and he wanted to fight, and that's kind of his impulse reaction is to try to go violent every time somebody challenges his narrative. And that tells me a lot about the substance of what he's saying.
So you know what it's like to go back and forth between Washington, D.C. and the district. That's a pretty grueling life, I hear. I mean, being a member of Congress is a lot of, I mean, how do you, that's a tough life. Tougher than people think.
Well, and I've done it as a chief of staff, and Barry and I both have maintained residence in the district. I live in the district. He's always lived in the district, and we get out of there. I stay as a chief of staff, I stayed in a hotel. As a member, I will probably do what Barry and many other members do, which is sleep in my office, because I don't have any interest in having a residence in Washington, D.C. It's not where I live. It's not reality. As a matter of fact, as chief of staff and along with Congressman Loudermilk, all of our staff, one of the things that we strongly encourage, not necessarily required, but strongly encourage all of our staff, wherever they're from, at least 2 or 3 weeks a year, go back home, see how real people live, because this city's not it. So we wanted to make sure that our staff stay connected to the real world, and that's what we've tried to do throughout. And we managed, both of us have never let Washington get in our blood. I love the historic nature of the city. I love all the history there. I probably have, and I'm not kidding, I probably have 4,000 or 5,000 pictures of the Capitol and the mall in different light settings and different sunsets and sunrises and all this stuff. And everybody said, well, how many pictures do you need? I said, look, it's, I love everything our country stands for. I love what that Capitol stands for. The people and the activity in that city is a whole different animal. It doesn't represent what our founders created. I've been telling folks on the campaign trail, I've got this image, and I've had the idea in my head for a long time. But I finally, using ChatGPT, I got it to create an image for me. And, I view the federal government that our founders created under Article 1, Section 8, very limited powers. If our federal government was a steam engine, it would be this beautiful, sleek freightliner, efficient, rolling down the tracks. And then today in 2026, because we've abandoned Article 1, Section 8, and we're doing everything under the sun, this thing looks like something out of Mad Max. It's weighted down with all this trash all over it that the federal government should not even be participating in. And we've got to return it to that vision of the founders. And that's kind of what, my motivation is to get the federal government out of everybody's lives and return it to that Article 1, Section 8 limitation.
Well, sir, we wish you, that's quite an analogy. It's very powerful. I totally get it. This is Georgia 11th, correct? Georgia 11th District?
Georgia 11, voting is tomorrow. My website is voterobackerson.com. If you want to learn more, I've got, my positions on the issues. All are there, and the voting is tomorrow, and I would appreciate anybody in this district, if your vote, and if you're outside this district, your prayers cross all boundaries. So I would appreciate it.
Well, you can count on that. Rob Adkerson, Adkerson, Adkerson. And, sir, we wish you all the luck in the world tomorrow. We need you down there.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate you.
All right, to be continued, and we'll be right back, everybody.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
All righty, here we are, and what a day, huh? It's what's special about today? Actually, it feels like we're in a little bit of a lull, right? There's a little bit of a lull. I think we're going to be bombing in Iran sometime this week. Could be tonight. All right, stand by for that. I got to get out of here in a second. 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. Yes, George, how are you?
Fine, Greg. I was a court clerk in Supreme Court in the city for years. That's where I met your dad. If I would have done something like that lady, the clerk, so-called clerk in South Carolina, I'd be in prison. She cost the state of Carolina hundreds of thousands of dollars to run a trial like that. I suspect that she was appointed to the job through the political system. I can't believe she did that. She's a real idiot. And she should. It's disgraceful.
Well, she got arrested and convicted. By the way, what did she do? She basically told the jury, if I were you, I'd find this guy guilty, something like that, right?
Yeah, but she got probation. She didn't get a day in jail. She deserves jail. I would have done something like that, or my colleagues here. We'd be in jail. She cost the state a lot of money. She's a jerk. And it's shameful. I took my job seriously, and it was serious business in the courtroom.
Yeah, no, I mean, I thought about that. I noticed that, the probation, Look, they make these determinations, but she got caught, and there's a new trial, and I think that's, look, I have a feeling the guy's innocent. I do. You want to hear the crazy video again? You want to hear that crazy dog thing? Bubba the dog? We got Bubba the dog?
I don't really care for
well, you speak for yourself. I want to hear Bubba the dog. This is Bubba the dog. I'll see you later. This is the guy. This is the dog that they said totally convicted Alex Murdaugh, where I think it's the opposite. You ready there, Carlos? Go ahead.
Get back. Get back.
There's a dog in a kennel.
Quick, Cash.
This is what Alex Murdaugh says.
It's okay. Come here. It's not bad. Come here, Cash. Post it. Cat.
Hey, he's got a bird in his mouth.
Bubba.
Bubba.
That's a guinea.
This is a chicken.
I think it's a guinea.
Come here, Cash.
All right, they say this is 2 minutes before Alex Murdaugh opens fire on his family. And they're talking about a guinea and a chicken. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Kelly, I don't believe it. Hello, Jeff in New Jersey. How are you?
Hi, Greg. I happen to be a psychiatrist, and one of the things you learn to listen to is when people are making stuff up. When the cop said he had been diagnosed with PTSD, it's at least 6 months after an event occurs that you look for the symptoms of PTSD. So it was a little quick to happen within a week.
Yeah, totally. You're right about that. That's a great point. Hold on a second. I want to write that down. The PTSD thing, you don't know right away. You don't know that right away. Let me see here. Hey, you're a psychiatrist, right?
Yes.
So that means you're a medical doctor too, right?
Medical doctor, right, exactly.
Yeah, that's amazing. Why'd you pick psychiatry of all the things?
I had been practicing pain management and addiction medicine and decided that most of these people had what you call a co-occurring disorder, another psychiatric problem, and this was the best way to treat them.
What disorder is that again? Say that again. What kind of disorder?
I was practicing pain management and as well as
yeah, I heard that part, but you said most of it is related to a certain disorder. What was that disorder?
Usually people have another psychiatric disorder, such as depression, anxiety. Something else is driving the pain, and something else is driving the addiction. So I decided the way to put it together would be to become an addiction psychiatrist.
I love it. You know what? I used to see a psychiatrist quite a bit, and I like you guys. But you know what really helped me? God in the Bible. It really did. I don't have to see a psychiatrist anymore. I do. I think it's a big part of it. Let me ask you something real quick. What do you think of all the weed that's out there right now? What's it doing to people?
It's more of dumbing down our society, spreading alcohol and weed out there, and it's harming people, and it's especially harming kids. and kids are having psychotic breaks because of the weed, I think it's the biggest mistake we could be making as a society. There's no net benefit for the rare person who needs it for pain, but other than that, it should not be abused.
Jeff, you have so much common sense and expertise. Appreciate you very, very much, Doctor. Thank you very much. Mike is standing by. Yes, Mike?
Hi, Greg. You did a really nice job on that interview with the Cassidy guy. He fell right into your trap. He didn't think you would know what the second impeachment was.
Oh, right. Yeah, the second one.
You put him right into the trap, though. And you would have been good. You would have been a very good interviewer if you had decided to become a cop. You have good sense.
Well, I appreciate that, man. Yeah, no, it's, yeah. You want to hear that moment again? Want to hear that moment real quick? Play the top of the moment. This is what he's getting at. Thank you, Mike. Go ahead. Relitigate anything, but I am curious. Did you vote for impeachment on Did you vote for impeachment on one of the impeachments?
Yes, I did. Oh, yes, I did.
Which one?
The second one.
January 6th. And I know, look, here's my thing. And then I lay into him a little bit about, he was all evasive, but I had the facts. Hey, Mike, thank you very much. Robert is standing by in my beloved North Carolina, former place of residence for me. How are you?
Hi, Greg. Biden's blanket pardons are illegal. There is no law supporting blanket pardons, nor is there any case law whatsoever in which that was done previously.
I think you may be wrong on this one, and I'm just realizing. I mean, number one, you couldn't call them blanket pardons. They were for individuals, right? I mean, I think they were corrupt, don't get me wrong. But he wrote them individually. One for Hunter, one for his brother, one for his other brother, his sister-in-law, that kind of thing, Fauci. Why do you say they're blanket pardons?
For crimes of every kind under the sun.
No, but that's actually a thing you can do. You can do that. They did that for Nixon. Remember? Now, if you want to talk a blanket pardon, and I think it's constitutional, the one that President Trump issued for the J6ers. Oh, you mean blanket in terms of the offenses, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the Nixon one basically was like any and all offenses he may have committed against the United States. There's also this. I heard this from Comey of all people, that when you accept a pardon, do you know what it is? It's acknowledgement of guilt. And this goes back to World War I Supreme Court ruling. Accepting a pardon is tantamount to acknowledgement of guilt. And that's something I'm going to develop. Tony, very quickly, there's the music.
What about using mercenaries in the Gulf of Hormuz?
Mercenaries? Well, in a weird way, we kind of use mercenaries right now. Our own guys. We pay them. They're not doing it for free, you know. No. Nah. It's all going to be over soon, but we are going to have to bomb again, hard.
Thanks for listening to The Greg Kelly Show. You can hear The Greg Kelly Show weekdays at 12:15 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Get ready, Staten Island. It's time to celebrate 5 years of Ferry Hawks baseball.
Tuesday, May 19th at 10:30 a.m., it's morning baseball. Wednesday, May 20th at 6:30 p.m., have a pawsome time at Bark in the Park. Thursday, May 21st at 6:30, it's Pride Night with $5 Bud or Bud Light draft beer. Individual game tickets start at just $12.
Visit ferryhawks.com now to lock in your seats.